Hey, we are on air. It is Thursday, August 30th, and this is a meeting to check in on active development tasks for Backdrop CMS. We're closing in on Backdrop 111. Code freeze will be next Monday, which is actually the 2nd, and that should give us enough time to use the long weekend to work on any changes we want, which will be exciting. So most of today's meeting will be to go over the issues that are closest to getting in.
Monday is actually the 3rd, Jen.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I don't trust this calendar. Sunday, Monday, you're right. Monday's the 3rd. Yeah, I need to learn how to read a calendar, apparently. Okay, so really quickly before we get to Backdrop CMS issues, I wanted to highlight that we have 2 new modules this week, Views Term Path and View Field. So we've got a bunch of new views stuff. And before the meeting started, Tim and I were also talking about potentially working on Views Field View. So it's a very view module filled week. Thanks everybody who worked on those modules and who's thinking about working on more. All right, Nate, over to you for issues.
Okay, so before we get into 1.11, which I know is the exciting order of the day, quick recap on 1.10.2, which is the next bug fix release. No pressing issues for 1.10.2, but we've accumulated a good number of issues, probably 20 some issues that have been fixed in 1.10. Before we get into the code freeze, it might be good for us to cut another 1.10 release just to make it so that we've got a little buffer before we make 1.10.3, which would be the last release when 1.11 comes out. So I said this last week that it's likely that a 1.10 release is imminent, and it didn't happen this past week, but I think it could happen as soon as today or tomorrow. So keep your eyes peeled for 1.10.2. That includes just the collection of bug fixes that can accumulate over time. So take a look at the 1.10.2 issue tracker if you want to on GitHub. There's a bunch of issues in there, many of which won't be actually fixed in 1.10.2. And when that happens, those will all just get bumped into 1.10.3. Okay, so 1.11 is our next minor release. It'll be coming out September 15th. And Jen, maybe we should clarify the September 3rd code freeze. So we're saying that we're extending the code freeze through the weekend, and because it's a holiday in the United States and I think in Britain too, we're including Monday as also part of the thaw. Is that right? So the freeze will be the end of day Monday. Okay. All right. That's now official. Okay, so we've got less than a week to pull in the last features for 1.11, and we have a lot of outstanding work. Outstanding in both means both meanings of the word that we still have the potential to complete. So let's run through the list of things that we've been doing all 1.11 release and see how we stand. So contact module improvements, a big meta issue that OPI has been taking the lead on, issue 3023. There are lots of contact module improvements that have been merged, and there's 2 more that are in the RTBC state and 1 that needs a UX review. So it's likely that those 2 that are RTBC will get merged in promptly, and that may be the completion of contact module improvements for 1.11. We'll see how that proceeds this next week. Color module improvements, which Joseph or Joseph has taken the lead on in 1905 is another meta issue. The main issues that we were aiming to complete for 1.11 are complete and merged, including a new user interface for adding colors to themes that includes a live preview that is automatic and shows the actual real site with the preview applied to it, as well as the colorization of basis module. There is a follow-up that Joseph filed this past week, improving the robustness of the new theme settings form, the way that the color fields are separated and displayed, so you can split them into multiple field sets. That one currently needs review. Also, this one that hasn't been completed yet, but I would really love to see completed is adding some predefined color schemes to the basis theme. Right now, it's colorizable, but it doesn't have any predefined schemes. And there's been some suggestions made there, but we have yet to turn that into a pull request or reach any kind of conclusion there. Yeah, take a look at that issue, which is 3209, to add predefined color schemes to basis. Okay, next up, bringing back the node preview, issue 3062. It currently needs work. It's just bounced back from RTBC a couple of times in the past few days. So that's really exciting. Thanks, Doc Wilmot, Olaf, and Herb for all of your work on making node preview come back from the dead. It looks like, I mean, it's been RTBC a couple of times. They're just working out a few remaining issues. So I'm hoping that that should reach completion here within the next couple of days. Core updates. Issue 2018 is big meta that ultimately will proceed to automatic updates. And there's 3 issues in particular that are in progress. 3105, which is allowing Backdrop Core to update itself via the user interface. Still needs review on that one. I think that there's been some requests that the current pull request has got some cruft in it that doesn't need to be there. Cruft, like literally like files that are just added to the pull request for no reason. And so I think there's been some requests to clean that up, but still needs more review. And I know that that one's a difficult one to review. We might need to do some discussion about how we want to handle this one. Like, I don't think it would be the worst thing for us to merge it in for 1.11, and then we'd have it actually in the release to actually, you know, do the testing. And since it's such new functionality, I don't think it's likely that people would run into it right away. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about how we should handle that one, because it's really looking like, despite our efforts to review it, like it's really, it almost needs to be in place in order for us to test it effectively. So the changes are really solid though, and the implementation is simple. So I'm optimistic that is a good set of changes there, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking to, you know, to have Backdrop replace itself, because in the event that it fails, then you have got a pretty broken website. But that pretty broken website can be redeemed manually, so it's not totally catastrophic if the update were to fail. Okay, carrying on from that, package signing is issue 1992. No progress on that one, and something that's probably not likely to see, we're not likely to see in 1.11. Although we could start making improvements to backdropcms.org at any time to facilitate better signing of packages, including like MD5 information.
Do we have an independent issue for backdropcms.org?
It's all. I don't think that there's an issue. I think that it's part of that. The pull request that's currently open is actually against backdropcms.org. So I think that one issue encompasses the changes that need to be made on backdropcms.org and Backdrop Core.
Thank you.
Let's see. We also have this issue to remove authorize.php, or probably more accurately to deprecate it. That's issue 3208. And there hasn't been any substantial progress on that one. We'll see. I don't think that there's much work involved in that one, mostly just removing places where we're calling authorize.php and then adding doc blocks all over the place saying that it's deprecated. But but there hasn't been any code implementation of that yet. So that also may not happen for 1.11. Okay, let's see. Also in the category of things probably won't make it for 1.11. Issue 37, tags for modules. No progress in this past couple of weeks actually on that one, so I won't recap that one all over again. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry, there's lots of things going on in the agenda. Okay. Something that was brought up in Gitter right before the meeting is issue number 100. The system for pageless nodes was resurrected this past week again by Herb Jewell, who took the question of like all of these complicated solutions that we're talking about and really distilled it down to the main functionality and made a pull request that has essentially rabbit hole type functionality in a single checkbox, just saying whether or not the content type that you're creating has a page or not. And so it's definitely the MVP, minimum viable product, for rabbit hole type functionality in core. But it looks like of the people participating in that issue, the comments have been really, really positive. So it is an almost trivial implementation. So there's not much maintenance or code required in order to get that functionality the way that it's implemented currently. So I think it's got a good chance at it, even though it's only a couple of days left here, and this hasn't been a heavily focused item for 1.11. It looks like this particular approach could make it in for 1.11. So please take a look at Pageless Nodes, issue number 100, and weigh in there on any thoughts that you guys might have.
Do you know what that does to Rabbit Hole itself? Would like Rabbit Hole be like an extension module that extends the functionality, or would it deprecate Rabbit Hole contrib? Or
so it would probably end up being a little bit strange if you had both Rabbit Hole and this new thing on there. Both Rabbit Hole and the new module would, if you turned on Pageless Nodes, it might make Rabbit Hole do things that Rabbit Hole is not describing, because like basically either one of them will be able to block access to the node view page with this ability. So if you use either of them will disable the view, basically. Or if you wanted to keep using Rabbit Hole for the time being, you'd probably just have to ignore the Pageless Nodes option, and then Rabbit Hole would continue functioning as Rabbit Hole does. So for existing sites,
should we add an upgrade path though from Rabbit Hole to Pageless Nodes so that the module would turn off Rabbit Hole and take Rabbit Hole settings and turn them into Pageless Node settings?
Not entirely, because the scope is so much smaller for the core version.
What's the change in scope?
So Rabbit Hole has the ability to do things like redirect to another page if you don't have access, like the home page, or to what's the other one? It can show, say menu not found. It can do a redirect,
Access denied.
Or it can do access denied. I think it might be able to do one more thing as well. But Rabbit Hole has different behaviors for what to do if you don't have access to the node. And the core version only returns page not found.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the bare minimum. I think what should probably happen is that Rabbit Hole should continue to be an extension of the core functionality, and it would probably just disable the core option and then replace it with its own. So that's what I would expect to see happen.
That makes sense. We should just file an issue in the Rabbit Hole issue queue to make those things cooperate.
Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think that we should try to upgrade from Rabbit Hole. And if Rabbit Hole is there, it'll just continue functioning, and then it'll be a manual process too, if the user wants to disable Rabbit Hole and replace it with Pageless Nodes instead. Anyway, so yeah, put your thoughts on that issue. That would be handy to aggregate them in there. That is one of our longest running issues. So yeah, if you're gonna come in with a bright new idea, make sure that you've read the whole issue, because it really we're just like all over the place. We've talked ourselves into circles on this one over and over again. So yeah, it can take a little bit of effort to review the options that are out there. But if you just want to review the option that's being presented, then you can just kind of skip down to the end and say whether or not you think that itself is a good idea. Okay, next up, we've got a series of items that are related to image and file handling. Use EXIF data to rotate images when they're uploaded is issue 2887. This one is RTBC. I've already given this one a look a couple of times. Now I think that one is ready. Herb Duel has seconded on that one. Thank you very much. And Graham72, of course, for doing all of the implementation work and all the rerolls on that one. So that one is in real good shape. We'll probably see that one in the next day or two. Issue 3134 for the ability to upload or select an image through a browser. Image browser is actually that issue. This one, it looks pretty good, but it needs some work. There's a bug that is a major blocker that the AJAX behaviors within the embedded view of the image browser dialog don't work, which means that you can't have more than one page of images in your image browser and have it work. So that is kind of a major issue that is blocking the completion of that. Other than that, though, the functionality looks really pretty good. So 3134 is back to needs work with that critical problem blocking further progress. So any JavaScript pros out there, we could use some help figuring out what's going on there. It's extra tricky because there's no problems in the JavaScript console. It's just like silently, like it's just not working the way you would expect. So a little bit of an issue there. And lastly, fieldable file bundles, issue 2632, has also been bumping in and out of RTBC state for the past couple of weeks. And so that's really exciting. The current pull request, the status is that Doc Wilmot says that it's fully passing, but recent merges into 1.x have made it have a merge conflict. So merge conflict aside, supposedly that's also in really good shape. So more feedback and help on 2632 would also be highly appreciated. So that's very exciting. That's it for the list of things that are slated for 1.11. We still have a lot of things to wrap up, and only a couple of days before code freeze hits us, or feature freeze hits us. And so, yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. There's so many things. Like there's some like pretty huge features in here that it would be totally epic if if we get even two of these in here, then two additional ones in, it'll be really fantastic. So we're aiming for a really good release, I think, as usual. But the scope of our inclusion will be limited only by our ambition. So yeah, I guess, we've only got a couple days left. Let's keep hitting it and see how far we can take this release. That's it for the product update. I'll turn it back over to you, Jen.
Unmute myself. Yay. All right. Well, next up here is Backed Up for Good. I'm not sure if there's any new updates on that project, but we do have a note here for anyone who wants to contribute to check out the issue queue.
Yeah, just check it out and contribute if you have some time.
We chatted a little bit about this at Drupal GovCon. I might try to chime in there.
Okay, great. And then are there any questions or exciting things we could talk about? I have something. No one else? So somebody forked WordPress yesterday. And the WordPress fork is called Classic Press. I think the guy's name is Scott. Had a minute ago. Scott Bowler. I have his blog post here. I will post this into Gitter, where his message is essentially that Gutenberg is going to end up costing the WordPress community too much because of upgrading from previous versions to the latest version. So it's sort of the same message as Backdrop has. So yeah, kind of interesting. It only happened yesterday, at least according to his GitHub issues, and there doesn't seem to be a whole bunch of noise in his issue queue yet, but there's apparently a whole bunch of noise on the internet in general about this. So I'm not sure if he's like totally ready for, you know, creating an entire community around an alternate piece of software, or if he's just one guy who's like, I'm going to do it my way, and then he won't be part of a movement. But still, I find it interesting that he's got sort of the same message as we do about how making drastic changes to the software can affect the whole community is using it. So kind of exciting.
Drama.
Yay, open source drama.
There's been drama around that for a long time.
Yeah, there has been some pretty epic drama. I think that's not even surprising, really.
Yeah. All right, well, if you guys don't have anything else, I would like to go work on some issues.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thanks everybody for joining the meeting. Thanks everybody for watching. Got a couple days left before feature freeze, and let's get to it.
Nice kittens, Nate.
Oh, thank you. Okay, see you guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.